Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cohen back here with another video. Today, recapping the NBA games per usual. I really don't have a big topic I want to talk about today. Today's games were insane. I don't think there's one game I could talk about more than, well, there is like the Cavs Nets game, probably I could talk about a lot, Celtics Sixers. But there were just so many good games today that I just kind of want to dedicate a lot of time to each game. So I'll probably dedicate a couple minutes to each of the games, or at least some of the better games. There were a few games that weren't great, but all in all, it was a fantastic day of basketball. Great day to be someone stuck in quarantine with COVID. Not a bad day in terms of having some entertainment. So I'm gonna start with some of the like lower level games in terms of the entertainment value, and then go to like the bigger name games. Like I mentioned, Nets, Cavs, Celtics, Sixers were pretty big ones. Pistons, Hawks was pretty good too. So go ahead, drop a like, drop a subscribe, whatever you feel, and I'll go ahead and get started. So first, I'll talk about some of the games that just finished up. Suns Rockets just finished. That was the game I was waiting to finish before I made this video because the Rockets made a pretty good comeback. Christian Wood had a good game. Oladipo had a good game, but I have it on my TV over here, and it just ended, and the Suns came out on top, 6-point win. It was very, very close at the end. They really brought it back from like 13 points down with like 4 minutes to go. Pretty good effort from the Rockets. It just wasn't enough. The Suns are really, really talented, so can't really blame them. Then you go into Kings Clippers, which is a blowout right now. Their Clippers are at 15 with 2 minutes to play. Theoretically, they could still come back, but I don't see them coming back. Just a monster effort from Kawhi Leonard tonight. The Kings just didn't stand a chance tonight. Warriors Spurs, Curry's going crazy. DeJounte Murray's having a good game. The Warriors in general are just balling out. So they already have 104 points with 6 minutes still left to play. They're up by 18 points, 104-86. It's not looking good for the Spurs. We go into some of the other games. Heat Raptors. This was a decent one, but not one that I really watched. Purely just because there were a ton of other games going on all at the same time. They had so many great games on at the same time, which kind of sucked. I wish there were better games that happened at this later time slot, so I could have focused more on some of those. But Heat Raptors was pretty good. Kendrick Nunn had a big game. Fred VanVleet had a pretty big game. The Raptors in general, well, like they all played pretty well. It just wasn't enough to beat the Heat, who had a really good game tonight. Still missing Jimmy Butler due to COVID protocols, and hopefully he comes back soon because this Heat team needs him badly. They are still under 500 even with this one. I think this makes them 6-7. And if they want to make some noise in the East, they need to not be like the 8th seed in round one. Because if they're the 8th seed in that round one, they have to go up against like a Nets or like a Sixers or a Bucks. I'm not sure if they can take them out. These teams are really, really good. Unless the Heat find their stride at the right time like they did last season. Then we have Mavericks Pacers. Mavericks Pacers was pretty good too. You had Porzingis who balled out. He had like 27. Probably his best game since coming back from injury. It was really nice to see. Sabonis played well. The Pacers they just were out like firepowered, I guess is the word tonight. Jeremy Lamb came back. He played okay. He didn't play a ton because he was just coming off of injury, so he wasn't super, super involved, but all in all, I feel like he had a decent showing. Luka had a triple-double. You know what Luka does, but he was a little bit lower on the scoring side today. He let like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Kristaps Porzingis focus more on that. But a big win for the Mavericks, who are starting to really turn their season around after starting pretty poorly. Kristaps Porzingis is starting to get back into the mix. He's starting to get adjusted again. And I think that this team, when it's all said and done, is going to end up being dangerous by the time they hit their stride. Next, we get into where do I want to go next? I'll go Magic Timberwolves. This game was close all the way through, but really the big moment that matters this game is that Cole Anthony hit a ridiculous fading, like one-legged three to call game against the Timberwolves. It was unbelievable. If you haven't seen it, please go look it up. It was ridiculous. You need to see that. Shout out to Cole Anthony. I thought he was still in the draft. I'm super happy to see him balling out, getting an opportunity. Unfortunately, it comes in the absence of Markelle Fultz, who got injured, but I'm hoping that Cole Anthony is going to take advantage of this time. He's going to really develop his game, and so that when Fultz comes back, he and Fultz can really be that backcourt of the future for the Magic, like they are hoping that they're going to be. On the other side of the coin, the Timberwolves, man, you just hate to see the Timberwolves. They get their heart broken like every other day, it feels like. I don't know. It's not looking good for the Wolves, man. They really need Cat back, who's dealing with COVID right now. Hope he's okay. We haven't really heard much from him, but I'm sure he's doing fine. Between injury and COVID, he's only played 4 games this season, so they haven't even had a great look at their full healthy roster. Although when we have seen their full healthy roster, they also haven't looked very good. So I don't really know where this Timberwolves team goes because their pick, if it falls out of the top three, I believe it's top three protected this season. If it falls out of the top three and it goes to the Warriors, this Timberwolves team is kind of screwed because if they could add like I feel like if they could add like a Cade Cunningham to this team, I feel like D'Lo needs to play more of a two guard role, not necessarily at the two guard, but he needs to be more of a shooter rather than a ball handler. I'd like to see them pick up a Cade Cunningham or something, um, just someone like that, or maybe someone at the wing position, so you could have a future of like D'Lo. You could put Anthony Edwards at that 2 or 3, and then put whoever you draft in this draft at the 2 or 3. They could also desperately need a 4. They really need a power forward. Unfortunately, there aren't many great power forwards. Like maybe you could draft a Mobley and try and put him next to Cat. It would be interesting to see how that works, but I don't know where the Timberwolves team goes from here. They're really struggling right now, and yeah, it's starting to look like maybe the Wiggins trade might have been a mistake. If that pick doesn't convey to them, it's really, really going to hurt. Pistons Hawks, great game. Pistons played hard. Jeremy Grant had over 30. He's looked like an all-star this season. Unfortunately, I don't know if he's going to make it because even though he is putting up pretty good stats, the Pistons are terrible, and I think that hurts his case a lot. With the Hawks, they only had 4 bench points today, like the whole game. Two people scored 2 points off their bench. Trae Young had almost 40. John Collins had 30. Clint Capella had like a 25-25 game today. The Hawks starters just really came out to play, and the Pistons just didn't have an answer, especially when they went to overtime. Trae looked like himself today. He's been really, really struggling, so it was good to see him have a pretty good game. Pistons just aren't very good. Blake Griffin looks like the definition of washed at this point, which sucks to see because he's been really fun to watch for so long, but he just doesn't look healthy, or maybe he's just washed up. I don't know at this point. Yeah, looks like we're entering the twilight of his career. I still think he could be a productive player if he can stay healthy, but it might be time for him to move to a lesser role, which really hurts a Pistons team that's desperately lacking in star talent. Star power. That's the word I was looking for. Although I think this helps this Pistons team in the long run because they really, really could use someone good in this draft. And Evan Mobley would be cool for them. A Cade Cunningham, a Jalen Suggs, really just anyone at this point. Any talent that they can bring into Detroit would be huge for them. Next, we have probably the best 2 games of the entire night. I want to start with Celtics Sixers because that was the one I watched most of, or I had most attention on that game. Because Celtics Sixers games are always really fun. These teams don't like each other very much, and it doesn't matter who's on those rosters. You can tell that the Sixers and the Celtics do not like each other. The Celtics lost by 8. Big win for the Sixers, who were going against the Celtics without Jason Tatum. That is something important to include. And when you're going up against a team that's missing their best player, you never want to lose, especially if you're a team with championship aspirations like the Philadelphia 76ers. Good for them that they managed to close out this win. The Celtics put up a great fight. Jaylen Brown was really good. Kemba Walker looked really good in his limited minutes, coming off of a minutes restriction that he's still on. He didn't play as much time as he normally would have, but in that time he made the most of it. He had a bunch of threes, especially early in the game. He was really impactful, so it was really nice to see him look healthy. When they get Jason Tatum back, this team's going to be scary. Up to that point, they're struggling a little bit. They just don't have that production that they need to finish off some of these teams like a Philadelphia 76ers, who saw great games today from a lot of their big guys. Ben Simmons had a pretty solid game. He didn't score much, but he played great defense. He was great facilitating, had some key plays at the end of the game, getting some stops. Getting guys open is really probably the biggest thing Ben Simmons does that really doesn't show up in the stat sheet. He always finds ways to bring people to where they need to go. He's always directing traffic. He had this great play earlier where the ball got flipped across the court to Danny Green and someone was going to close out, and Ben Simmons had a perfect shut-off screen to keep the defender from managing to contest on the Danny Green 3, which ended up being a really big shot that put him up by a few more points. So Ben Simmons doesn't get enough credit for some stuff he does outside of the stat sheet. Joel Embiid, the big story tonight. He had over 40. He is unstoppable. I haven't seen a guy make the game look as effortless as he does. Maybe even forever. It's at least someone of his stature. I've been asked to make a video about Embiid and Jokic, and I might do that just to talk about how great both of them are. But man, you can't go wrong either way with the whole Embiid Jokic debate because Jokic will have amazing games like he had the other night against my Thunder, and then Embiid will come out and put 41 on the Celtics' head. The Celtics still don't have an answer to Embiid. They hope that Tristan Thompson can be that answer. Tristan Thompson is not stopping Embiid. Embiid did whatever he wanted tonight, and I think that's still a problem for the Celtics, the lack of being able to guard a guy like Joel Embiid. Finally, we get into the Nets-Cavaliers game, which was an amazing game. It was the debut of the Nets' big three. Kyrie back in his first game since that hiatus he went on with some personal reasons. Hopefully those reasons are okay. I think he talked a little bit about some family issues. I'm hoping everything's okay with Kyrie first and foremost. On the basketball side of things, they looked all right tonight. This big three put up pretty ridiculous numbers. Kevin Durant went off. Kyrie went off. James Harden didn't score a lot tonight. I think he had like 21 or something like that. He really was looking more to distribute, it looked like. Durant had 38, James Harden 21, 21-point triple-double, that is, Kyrie 37. Pretty big games from all of them. So you would think if that was the production you got, that this Nets team wiped the floor with the Cavs, not lost by 12 in double overtime. Yes, I said double overtime. It was a very close game throughout. The Cavaliers kind of had a lead. The Nets made this big run to come back. The Cavs ended up tying it up, and at the end of regulation, there was a controversial call where Colin Sexton got elbowed in the face by Kyrie Irving on a drive. They called it a charge. They looked at it, they overturned it, and made it just a no call. There was a jump ball, but there was like a second and a half left, so the jump ball happened, and then the clock just ran out. Went to overtime. Teams traded buckets back and forth. Colin Sexton hits a ice cold three right at the end of the first overtime to send it to a double overtime where Colin Sexton just took over. Colin Sexton had the last 20 points for the Cavaliers at one point, which was unreal. He was unstoppable. He had 42 tonight, 5 and 5. Colin Sexton was a monster tonight. And the fact that this Cavs team was able to stay resilient enough and take down this team that a lot of people penciled the Cavs out. They said the Cavs were going to get blown out this game with this big three coming in. The fact that this team stayed resilient enough to fight to one overtime, fight to a second overtime, and then just smash them in that second overtime, it was huge for this team. And I think that these are the type of wins that if this Cavs team is trying to make a push for the playoffs, which it kind of looks like they could, it depends if Darius Garland can get healthy again and if he returns to the play that he had before his injury, I believe. I think it really comes down to that. So I guess we'll see what happens. Taurean Prince looked like a great addition tonight. Jarrett Allen looked fantastic tonight. He had a good game. Damian Dotson had a good game. Just all around great performances from the Cavaliers, and it was really nice to see from them. Back on the net side of the ball, Steve Nash is still kind of trying to figure out the offense a little bit, and I think these players are too. Like I said, James Harden was looking more to defer, and at times they kind of look like a playground offense in terms of like they weren't running any sets. It was very ISO heavy, and it looked like they were just like, all right, my turn to take the ball, your turn to take the ball. Not like a fluid game where at any moment any one of them could get the ball. It looked like they were clearly kind of taking turns at times, which I think they'll figure out. This is their first game playing together, and when you put three talents together like this, it's definitely going to take time for them to adjust. You had good performances too from like Jeff Green, DeAndre Jordan played decent, Joe Harris played decent, but the problem is that these guys played a lot of minutes. Kevin Durant played 50 minutes, Jeff Green 45, James Harden 50, 48 from Kyrie Irving, 42 from Joe Harris. It was a lot of minutes for these guys, and for guys who like Kevin Durant coming off a pretty big injury, Kyrie Irving's been kind of injury prone the last few seasons. These are big minutes to play against like the Cavaliers in a regular season game. It'll be really interesting to see if they load manage going forward or if they keep putting out all three guys on each night to try and build that chemistry. I think that's going to be a really interesting balance that Steve Nash is going to have to find for this Cavs team to find their stride, be successful, and especially when it comes down to the fact that their goal this season is to win a championship. Not necessarily win regular season games. Obviously, those are key because this Nets team wants to get that home court advantage. You don't want to like slack off and fall behind in the standings. So you obviously want to win these games, but the ultimate goal is to win those postseason games. And we'll see how they play up until the playoffs. See if they rest guys. See if they were like, nah, let's keep you guys in rhythm. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what Steve Nash does. This is a lot on his plate as a first-year coach, and I think he's up for the task. So with that being said, and also this team needs defense badly. You can't give up 147 points to the Cleveland Cavaliers, especially without Darius Garland. I like the Cavaliers, but 147 points to any team is just terrible. Yeah, they need defense. They need another big. DeAndre Jordan's not the answer. So, with that being said, I think that's about all I wanted to talk about today. Like I said, a lot to talk about with these games. This video went kind of long, but I don't know. There was just a lot to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys later. Real one, say back.